Welcome back to Porch Reflections. Grab your cup of tea and let's just dive right in. I've got some situational thoughts that I've been having over the last 3 or 4 days. My husband Peter and I have been working a lot on the house during our construction work on the final stages, and there's been times where I've been able to observe my reactions and his reactions, and then just sort of taking, again, I've used this expression before, a bird's eye view of how things are unfolding. And the piece that I'll bring forward is that, and I'll share maybe the story of it later, but I think I'll save that for now. There's a little bit more of just the meat of the teaching. That if a door is left open, and this isn't an example that happened, I just happened to be looking at my front door that's slightly ajar. If a door is slightly open, I have responsibility. If I take responsibility for that door being slightly open, let's say I came in the door and thought I closed it behind me and it wasn't, and then I see that it's not closed, right? If I take full responsibility for it and say, I have a choice now. I can either go over there and close it. If I don't feel like I can do that, or I don't have the capacity to do that, I could ask somebody else to do it. I could say to myself, I'm going to leave that door open. I'm not going to get it right now. I'm going to come back out in a few minutes and I'll close it then. Or I could say, I want the door open. I'm going to leave that door open all day. Right? So I've got like 4 or 5 scenarios. There might even be another one in there. But I've got a lot of choice. I've got a lot of freedom around the fact that the door is open. Now, if I don't take responsibility for it, if I leave the door open and just leave it open, and let's say my husband comes around and sees that it's open, he then has a choice to either take full responsibility for the door being open, or he can choose and say, Sybil left the door open again. And then he can tell the story in his head how that's annoying because she does that all the time. And he then can play through discomfort and dis-ease and ill thought in his mind, his consciousness, and his body. He doesn't have a lot of freedom, right? Because he is in a place where he's not in his highest place. He's not taking responsibility for it. Now he could say, the door's open, and I'm going to take responsibility for that because I see that it's open. I can ask Sybil to go close it. I can close it myself. I can leave it open. Right? He's got freedom. He's got choice around the door being open or closed. I think it's a really important place where we, especially in relationship, and I'm using marriage, when you share a home with someone, when you're intimately doing the ins and outs, it's these little tiny things that add up, and it can be so simple as leaving a door open that can become something that then becomes disturbing in the relationship. Okay? So it's this place of full responsibility gives us freedom. It gives us so many choices along the way of how we are going to interact with it. We have a whole series of thought processes that we can go through. And it leads to the sort of next place is that so many of us confuse or intertwine the words responsibility and action, right? That if we take responsibility, we have to take action. Well, it just isn't the case, because as I showed, a couple of them is I could actually just consciously sit there, take responsibility for it, and choose not doing anything, right? The difference is action, when it's done compulsively, is, again, it isn't freeing. Every time something happens, I have to react to that, or if I'm reacting from a compulsive place without the pause, without the taking responsibility, looking at all my my choices along the way, then I become, again, a little bit stuck. I'm in the place that will often come to a place of blame or shaming or feeling resentful, right? If every time something happens, I have to take responsibility for it. And mothers are guilty of this all the time. And marriages, again, I hear a fair amount of women, because I talk with women obviously more than I do men. I'll it's not obvious. It's obvious in my profession. I'm a yoga teacher, so right. So I see more women than I do men. That women are blaming their husbands a lot of the time. That they are always having to do everything. Every time this, I have to do this. Every time this happens, I have to be the one to do this. They're giving up their freedom, right? They're giving up their freedom and feeling compulsively that they have to react, and they think they're taking responsibility. And I'm going to challenge that thought process, that actually you're giving up responsibility. You're actually just compulsively reacting, okay? So reaction is not responsibility. Responsibility is that we are one with the situation, and that no matter what it is, no matter how it came to be, as soon as it enters into my field of awareness, it's my responsibility, and I take full responsibility for it. Going back to the story, my husband, I think, is better at this than I am, and he often leaves me feeling the feeling at the front door, right? And it's not so much the front door is the issue for us, but there's things that happen that there's not a lot of discussion about who is responsible and who isn't responsible. And Peter's very clear where he is choosing to take responsibility and when he's not, right? And he's very clear and very clean with that. And the places where he sees me lacking in picking up responsibility, he actually doesn't do anything. He doesn't ask me to, he doesn't lead me to it. He just leaves there a challenge for me to pick up the baton or not. And that's something that I watched in myself a lot this weekend when we were working together. The baton was left for me several times, and I didn't pause long enough to get to that place where I could feel all my choices and choose wisely. I was tired, it was warm, it was hot. I mean, there's lots of reasons why things go a little askew, but it did. So it was a perfect learning for me, right? To doesn't matter how the situation arises, when it comes into my field of awareness, when I see something that possibly needs something to happen to it, there's a series of choices that I can make, and I can take responsibility for it, and gives me a lot of freedom to actually own it and to see it to its fullness. And mostly why? Because it changes my inner landscape. It gives me a sense of freedom. It gives me a sense of being one with the world rather than reacting to the world and or feeling a victim of the world, right? And so I'm going to leave that with you. If your world is your house, if we just make it our house, can you take a new view of your world and become one with it? To take responsibility is to be able to know that you can respond to it, that you're saying yes to responding. I'm going to respond. I will take response, and I will adjust myself, my thoughts, my words, my actions, so that I'm empowered and free to be responsive, right? And if I'm responsive, I've got. I'm going to use the word power. I've got power of my life. I've got the ability to be in it fully and to navigate it forward in the way that I want to navigate it forward. So here's to our cup of tea. We're moving along in this beautiful place of open-heartedness, kind-heartedness, and taking responsibility. And I think this last couple of days, it was a weekend for me, was really, really empowering and really impactful for me to really step into that deep teaching of responsibility. So enjoy, and we'll see you back on the porch soon.